If you'd asked me a year ago who I trusted more than anyone, besides my wife, the answer would have been easy. Ryan. We met in college. Shared cheap apartments, bad takeout, and wild dreams. He was more than a friend. He was my brother. When I got married, he stood beside me as best man. When he tied the knot, I gave the speech. We built businesses together, traveled together, and swore we'd get rich side by side. And for a while, it worked. The company we started, a small logistics setup, took off faster than either of us expected. Clients came rolling in, money followed, and life was good. My wife, Sarah, adored him too. She always said, "It's rare to see two friends so loyal to each other." But maybe that's where I went wrong. Maybe I trusted him too much. The first cracks appeared in ways so small, I almost ignored them. Invoices delayed. Client calls I never knew about. A meeting that Ryan handled alone because I was too busy. Whenever I pressed him, he'd grin that familiar grin, the one that used to get us out of trouble in college, and say, "Relax, bro. I got us." And like a fool, I believed him. But then, the business wasn't the only place I noticed shifts. Sarah started acting differently around him. At first, I thought it was nothing, just comfort. After all, Ryan was practically family. He came over for dinners, helped fix the leaky faucet when I was out of town, even picked her up from work once when her car broke down. It all seemed innocent. Until one night, I walked into the kitchen and caught them mid-conversation. The way Sarah laughed, soft, a little too lingering. The way Ryan looked at her, not like a friend, but like a man measuring boundaries he might one day cross. My gut twisted. When they noticed me, Sarah straightened too quickly. Ryan smirked, that same grin, and changed the subject as if nothing had happened. I told myself I was imagining it. I buried the suspicion under work, under stress, under excuses. But deep down, I knew two worlds I never wanted to collide were beginning to overlap. That night, lying awake, staring at the ceiling, one thought haunted me. What if the man I trusted with my business was also after my home? And I didn't know it then, but the proof was already in front of me, waiting to explode. Trust is funny. You don't really notice it when it's there. It's like air, invisible, constant, taken for granted. But the moment it cracks, the moment you even suspect a fracture, you can't stop hearing it, feeling it, tasting it. Every word becomes double-edged. Every look becomes a code you can't decipher. That's what life with Ryan and Sarah became for me. At work, I started noticing little things I would have once ignored. Spreadsheets that didn't add up. Payments logged but never reflected in our bank account. When I asked Ryan, he'd lean back in his chair, throw me that lazy grin, and say, "Accounting glitch, bro. You know how slow these clients are. Stop stressing." Except I was stressing, because our bills were piling up while Ryan was somehow thriving. He'd started wearing new watches, expensive ones. His car suddenly upgraded from the old beat-up sedan to a gleaming black SUV. He claimed it was a lease deal too good to pass up, but even a fool could see this was no budget car. Then there was the bar tab. We used to split everything down the middle. Lately, he was buying rounds for the whole place. One night, I tried to pull him aside, keep it casual. "Ryan," I said, "you sure we're not stretching ourselves thin? The numbers." He cut me off with a laugh, clapping my shoulder so hard it nearly knocked my beer over. "Brother, stop looking at numbers. Look at me. Do I look worried? Huh, I got this. You just keep being the face of the business, shaking hands, kissing babies, all that PR crap. Let me handle the dirty work." And against my better judgment, I let him. But at home, the cracks were wider, uglier, and impossible to ignore. Sarah was distracted. At first, I thought it was just stress. Her job was demanding. But then I noticed the silences. The text she answered a little too quickly. The phone turned face down on the table, even when it buzzed. One night, I came home late from the office. The house was quiet, lights dimmed, but I heard voices, hers and Ryan's. I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. I told myself to walk in casually, to laugh it off if it was nothing. But I didn't. I stayed. I listened. "He's getting suspicious," Sarah whispered. My throat closed up. Ryan's voice followed, low, calm, calculated. "Let me worry about him. Just stick to the plan." Stick to the plan? My mind spun, clawing at meaning. Were they talking about the business? About me? About us? I pushed open the door just then, pretending I'd only just arrived. They were sitting at the kitchen table, too far apart to look intimate, but not far enough to look innocent. A black folder sat between them, closed. When I entered, Sarah snatched it up like it was a live grenade. "You're home early," she said, her smile strained. Ryan grinned, casual as ever. "Just talking shop, man. Your wife's got more brains than the both of us. She's been giving me ideas." I forced a laugh, but my gut screamed. That night, when Sarah fell asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my body rigid, my mind racing. He's been giving her ideas, or she's been giving him something else. The next day, I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was reading shadows as monsters. But paranoia has a way of finding proof. I started digging. At the office, I pulled up records Ryan thought I'd never look at. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, shell companies tied to addresses that didn't exist. And there it was, money, tens of thousands, siphoned quietly out of our business and rerouted through a maze of fake vendors. And Ryan's name was all over it. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the evidence, the betrayal screaming from the screen. He wasn't just bleeding the company dry. He was setting me up to take the fall. And then I saw something else. An account in Sarah's name. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. A duplicate name. Maybe, but the address matched. My wife's address. My home. My life. I felt like the floor gave way beneath me. When I confronted Sarah that evening, I didn't mention the account. Not yet. I just asked about Ryan, about their ideas. She froze, then laughed nervously. "Oh my God, are you jealous? Really? He's your best friend. He's our friend." But her eyes, they darted too fast. Her tone cracked too thin. And for the first time in years, I didn't believe her. The next week was hell. I played dumb, smiled at Ryan, kissed Sarah, pretended everything was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. Every touch from Sarah felt like poison. Every grin from Ryan felt like mockery. I started watching them, tracking them. One night, I followed Ryan after he left the office. He drove not to his apartment, but to a quiet hotel on the edge of town. I parked a few blocks away, waited, and sure enough, an hour later, Sarah's car pulled up. I watched her walk inside, my heart splitting into jagged pieces. An hour after that, they came out together, not holding hands, not touching, but close, too close. Ryan walked her to her car, his hand brushing the small of her back. She didn't push it away. She didn't even flinch. That was all I needed. But here's the thing about betrayal. Catching it doesn't end it. It just begins a darker chapter. Because now I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just angry. I was planning. Betrayal doesn't kill you in a single blow. It bleeds you slowly, drop by drop, until you can't tell if you're alive out of strength or stubbornness. When I saw Sarah walk out of that hotel with Ryan, her car keys in one hand, his smile in the other, something inside me didn't just break. It hardened. I thought I'd rage, scream, maybe even confront them right there in the parking lot. But instead, I felt something colder, sharper, clarity. They weren't just cheating me. They were stealing everything I built. And if I exploded too soon, they'd win. No, if Ryan and Sarah thought I was blind, I'd let them. For now. The next morning, I walked into the office with a smile plastered on my face. Ryan was already there, sprawled in his chair like he owned the place. He looked up, grinned. "Morning, partner. Big day today. Clients wiring the advance. Told you things are smoothing out." I chuckled, casual. Knew I could count on you. It took everything in me not to lunge across the table and smash his smug face. But I had to play dumb. If I showed my hand too soon, he'd cover his tracks. And Sarah? She'd slip deeper into whatever game they were playing, and I'd lose my chance to expose her. So I played along, smiled at dinners, kissed her goodnight, Pretended not to notice how often she texted in the bathroom or how quickly she silenced her phone when I walked in. Pretended not to notice the faint smell of cologne on her clothes that wasn't mine. But behind the mask, I was moving pieces. The first step was proof. Suspicion is poison, but evidence? That's a weapon. Late one night, after Sarah fell asleep, I slipped into the study and opened her laptop. My hand shook as I typed her password. Our anniversary date, ironically enough, emails, transfers, flight bookings, and then confirmation. There was an email chain between her and Ryan. Not romantic, not yet, but laced with something worse. Conspiracy. They were coordinating payments, hiding transactions, laughing about how clueless I was. One line burned into my skull. Once he's out of the picture, it's all ours. I didn't know if out of the picture meant financially ruined or something darker. But suddenly, sleeping beside her felt like sharing a bed with a loaded gun. I copied everything, emails, documents, bank transfers, onto a flash drive and tucked it inside the lining of my office bag. The next day, I went further. I installed a discreet camera in the office, angled perfectly at Ryan's desk. If he made one wrong move, one shitty phone call, one suspicious meeting, I'd have it. And then I hired someone, a private investigator. Old school, discreet, the kind of guy who didn't ask questions if you paid cash. I gave him Ryan's name, Sarah's, and just 2 instructions. Follow them. Record everything. Days blurred into weeks, each one heavier than the last. Every morning, I woke up next to Sarah, smiled at her sleepy face, and wondered if she knew I already had the knife in my hand, metaphorically at least. Ryan grew bolder, too. He started disappearing from the office in the afternoons, claiming client lunches. But my hidden camera caught him stuffing contracts into his bag, calling unknown numbers, laughing at jokes I couldn't hear. And Sarah? She became sweeter, almost too sweet. Random kisses, home-cooked meals, late-night whispers of, I love you. Maybe guilt was eating at her. Or maybe, deep down, she knew I was watching. One night, the PI called me. His voice was low, steady, professional. I've got photos, he said. Your wife, your partner, together. The next morning, he handed me a folder thick with evidence. Photos of Sarah and Ryan meeting at the hotel. Sarah slipping into his SUV at night. Ryan with his hand on her waist, leaning close. There it was, the truth in black and white. I remember staring at the photos, my chest hollow. Betrayal hurts, but visual proof? That's a dagger. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even confront them. Because now, I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a hunter. I needed them to reveal themselves, to make a mistake so big, so undeniable, that I could bury them both, financially and personally. So I built my trap. Step 1. I let Ryan think I was slipping. I started forgetting meetings, showing up late, acting stressed, overwhelmed. At the office, I sighed loudly, muttered about money problems, even joked, Man, if you weren't here, this place would collapse. He ate it up. The more incompetent I pretended to be, the cockier he became. Step 2. I dangled bait. I fabricated a fake deal, an overseas client with a massive payout. Using a burner email, I created the identity, built contracts, even had fake calls lined up. I told Ryan I was too busy to handle it and gave him full control. His eyes lit up like a predator smelling blood. Don't worry, bro, he said, gripping my shoulder. I'll handle this one. You just relax. Exactly what I wanted. Step 3. I looped Sarah in. At dinner, I casually mentioned the deal, pretending excitement. I watched her eyes flicker, the way her fork froze midair. Later that night, I forgot the contract on the kitchen counter. When I woke up, it was gone. Perfect. 2 weeks later, it happened. Ryan called me into the office. Paper spread across his desk. His tone was smooth, rehearsed. Bad news, man. The overseas deal fell through. Client pulled out last minute. Nothing we could do. But I knew better, because the PI had already sent me photos. Ryan meeting a stranger at the airport, handing over my fake contracts. A stranger who didn't exist. I leaned back in my chair, feigning defeat. Damn, that was our big shot. Ryan smiled sympathetically, but his eyes gleamed. Don't worry, we'll bounce back. We always do. That night, I came home to Sarah waiting at the door, smiling too brightly. I made your favorite dinner, she said, pulling me close. Her perfume clung too strong. Her hands lingered too long. And that's when I knew. Ryan had told her everything. They thought they'd won. But what neither of them knew was that every document, every transfer, every shady deal Ryan had made in the last 6 months was already sitting in a neat little folder on my desk. Copies of emails, bank records, photos. Proof not only of fraud, but of conspiracy. And in less than a week, I was going to walk into that office and make sure both Ryan and Sarah saw exactly what betrayal costs. There's a moment, right before a storm breaks, when the world holds its breath. The air goes still, the sky darkens, and you can almost taste the violence waiting to fall. That's what my life felt like in the days leading to the confrontation. I had my folder, thick with evidence, undeniable, lethal. Ryan thought he'd played me. Sarah thought she'd fooled me. But the truth sat in my hands, waiting for the right moment. And that moment came on a Friday. I called Ryan early that morning, my voice groggy, desperate. Bro, I said, we need to meet. Something's wrong with the accounts. I can't make sense of it. He chuckled, calm as ever. Relax, man. I'll swing by the office. We'll sort it out. Perfect. When I arrived, I didn't just bring the folder. I brought Sarah. Why is she here? Ryan asked as we stepped into the office. I smiled tight. She handles the books at home. Thought she could help clear things up. Sarah glanced between us. Uneasy. What's going on? Ryan smirked, dismissive. Nothing, sweetheart. Just business stuff. The word sweetheart hit like a knife. He'd use it too casually, too easily, as if he'd already claimed something that wasn't his. Sarah stiffened, catching it too late. I shut the office door, locked it, and set the folder on the table. Then let's talk business. I opened the folder, spread out the papers, emails, transfers, photos. Ryan's smirk faltered as his own handwriting stared back at him. Sarah's face drained of color when she saw her name on the account statements. What is this? She whispered. This, I said, my voice steady, is 6 months of betrayal. Money siphoned from our company, hidden in offshore accounts. Transactions routed through shell companies. And guess what? Some of it went straight to your name, Sarah. Ryan laughed, forced brittle. Come on, man. You really think. Don't. I snapped, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Don't insult me with lies. I've got photos of you meeting strangers at airports, handing off contracts. I've got emails with her copied in. I've got everything. Sarah shook her head, tears brimming. It's not what you think. Oh, it's exactly what I think. I shot back. You weren't just screwing around behind my back. You were planning to take everything, my company, my money, my life, together. Ryan's mask slipped. The grin vanished, replaced by cold calculation. He leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. So what's your play here? Huh? You think you can just wave these papers and scare us? Not scare, I said quietly. Expose. I slid a USB drive across the table. This isn't just in here. It's backed up, sent to my lawyer, copied to cloud storage. The second I say the word, it all goes public. You go down for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. And Sarah, I turned to her, my chest tight. You go down with him. Her face crumpled. I just... She looked at Ryan, then at me, torn between guilt and fear. Ryan, though, stayed stone cold. You won't do it. Try me, I said. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then Sarah cracked. Ryan, stop. He knows. He's not bluffing. Her voice broke on the last word, and in that moment, I saw the truth written across her face. Regret, guilt, but not innocence. Never innocence. Ryan slammed his fist on the table, the sound echoing through the room. You think you're smarter than me? You think you can corner me in my own game? I stood, towering over him, my fury barely leashed. This was never your game. You stole from me, from us, and you thought I wouldn't notice? You thought I'd just roll over? His eyes narrowed. I thought you were my brother. The word hung between us like a curse. Brother. Once it had meant loyalty, laughter, late-night promises. Now it was ash. Brothers don't screw each other's wives, I said flatly. Sarah sobbed, covering her mouth. Ryan flinched, his mask cracking just enough to reveal what I'd known all along. I gathered the papers back into the folder, slid it under my arm, and stepped toward the door. This is how it goes, I said, my voice cold. You walk away. From the company. From me. From her. You sign everything over, clean and legal. Or I walk into the police station with this folder, and you spend the next 10 years rotting in a cell. Ryan stood, fist clenched, his face red with rage. For a second, I thought he might swing at me. But then he saw the steel in my eyes, the quiet, deadly resolve, and he froze. Sarah whispered, broken, "Please, can't we just—" "No," I said, cutting her off. "There's no we anymore." Her face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. Ryan spat on the floor. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, unlocking the door, "but not as much as you will." I walked out without looking back. The folder pressed to my chest like a shield. My legs shook, my heart pounded, but I didn't stop. For the first time in months, I felt free. That night, Sarah tried to talk. She begged, pleaded, swore it wasn't what it looked like. I listened, silent, my face blank. Then I packed a bag and walked out the door. Ryan? He showed up at the office the next day, his lawyer in tow. But by then, it was too late. My lawyer had already filed the paperwork. The fraud was exposed, the contract shredded, and Ryan's empire of lies collapsed overnight. The storm had broken, and though it left destruction in its wake, it washed away the illusion too. I was no longer blind, no longer a victim. And as I walked into the dawn of a new day, I swore I'd never let betrayal cut me this deep again. The night after I walked out felt like a lifetime compressed into hours. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The silence of the motel room pressed against me. Every hum of the air conditioner reminded me of the house I'd left behind, the bed where Sarah was probably lying awake, crying into her pillow. Once, that thought would have shattered me. Now it just made me feel hollow. I kept the folder on the nightstand, the weight of it like a loaded gun. Ryan's crime, Sarah's betrayal, my proof, it was all there. Every time my eyes drifted shut, I saw their faces. Ryan's smirk turning brittle. Sarah's tears sliding down her cheek. My whole life burning down in front of me, and all I could do was walk away. The next morning, I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls. Sarah. A few from Ryan, too. None of them I answered. I stared at the screen until the battery died, then threw it into the drawer and left it there. But silence doesn't make enemies disappear. The following week was chaos. Lawyers called. Clients called. Word spread. Ryan had tried to spin the story at first, that I was the unstable one, that I'd sabotaged deals out of jealousy. But the documents spoke louder than his lies. My lawyer filed everything with precision, every fraudulent transfer, every fake account. The authorities moved faster than I thought they would. Ryan's swagger collapsed in real time. He stopped showing up to the office. His SUV disappeared from the lot. Rumors swirled, his accounts frozen, creditors circling, investigators digging through every inch of his so-called empire. I didn't even have to fight him anymore. He was sinking all on his own, dragged under by the weight of his greed. And Sarah, she tried. God, she tried. The text turned into essays. Please. Apologies written in the dead of night. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, can we just talk? I didn't answer. But I read every word, each one carving deeper into me. Not because I wanted her back. No, that door had closed forever. But because I hated that even after everything, part of me still remembered the woman I thought she was. The woman who laughed with me in college dorm rooms, who held my hand during sleepless nights, who once swore we'd face the world together. But that woman didn't exist anymore. Or maybe she never did. Days blurred. Coffee in paper cups. Nights in motel beds that smelled of bleach. My life had shrunk to survival mode. Documents, lawyers, court filings. I thought the numbness would protect me, but numbness doesn't last. The breaking point came one night when I returned to motel and found Sarah waiting outside my door. Her eyes were red, her hair disheveled, like she hadn't slept in days. "Please," she whispered when I froze. "Just hear me out." I should have walked away, should have slammed the door, but I didn't. She stepped inside, hands trembling. "It wasn't what you think. Ryan, he pressured me. He said you didn't care anymore, that you were drifting, that he was the only one who understood me. I was weak. I was stupid. But I never wanted to hurt you." Her voice cracked, and for a split second, I saw the Sarah I once loved. The girl I'd built a life with. And that hurt more than all the evidence in the world. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked at her and said, "You chose him. Over me. Over us. And that's all I need to know." She broke down, sobbing, reaching for me. I stepped back. Her hands froze in midair, like even they knew she had no right to touch me anymore. Finally, she whispered, "So that's it? We're just done?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "We're done." She left without another word. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat in silence, the emptiness inside me finally making sense. I wasn't holding on to her anymore. I wasn't even holding on to the pain. I was holding on to myself. The court case dragged on, but by then, I didn't care about winning or losing. Ryan was finished. Everyone knew it. His reputation was mud, his accounts frozen, his investors gone. I didn't need to destroy him. He destroyed himself. And Sarah? She disappeared too. Word was she'd left town, maybe moved back with her parents. I didn't follow up. I didn't want to know, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking backward. I was standing at the ruins of everything I thought I knew, marriage, friendship, trust, and realizing that ruins weren't the end. They were the beginning. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to start again. Time passed, though for a while it didn't feel like it. Days bled into nights, weeks into months. The motel room gave way to a small apartment on the edge of town, sparse and quiet. I told myself it was temporary, but the truth was, I didn't know what permanent meant anymore. Permanent had been Sarah's smile across the breakfast table. Permanent had been Ryan's voice saying, "I got us, brother." And both of those had turned to ash. The legal battles dragged on, but I didn't go to every hearing. My lawyer updated me with cold efficiency. Ryan had been indicted, fraud charges stacked like bricks around his neck. The business was dissolved. Creditors circled him like vultures. The empire we built together was now a crater, and I didn't feel pride or relief, just emptiness. Watching him fall didn't make me rise. It just reminded me how much of myself I'd lost along the way. I kept my head down, picked up freelance work here and there, enough to keep the lights on. At night, I walked. Long, aimless walks through the city, past people laughing in restaurants, holding hands on benches. Their lives looked intact, untouched. And sometimes I envied them. Sometimes I hated them. Sarah reached out a few times in the early months. Letters slipped under my apartment door. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Always the same desperate tone. Apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness. I never answered. She had made her choice. And if I let her back in, even for a second, I knew she'd carve open every wound I just barely stitched closed. One night, though, I saw her. It wasn't planned. I was walking back from the grocery store when I spotted her across the street. She looked thinner, paler, like the weight of everything had finally settled on her shoulders. For a moment, our eyes met. She froze, half a step forward, as if deciding whether to cross the street. My chest tightened, but I turned and walked away. I didn't know her words anymore. As for Ryan, the last I heard, he'd taken a deal. Lesser charges in exchange for cooperation. Whatever that meant. Some said he was bankrupt. Others said he was hiding assets overseas. I didn't care. He was no longer my problem. He was just another ghost in my past. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't end when the people leave. It lingers. It festers. Every time I met someone new, shook a hand, heard a laugh that sounded just a little too familiar, I felt that old suspicion flare. The voice whispering, don't trust, don't believe, don't let them in. I fought it. Some days I lost. Some days I won. Months later, I found myself at a coffee shop, laptop open, working on a new project. Not a business, just me, consulting for smaller firms, nothing fancy. And across from me sat a man, mid-40s, kind eyes. He'd hire me for advice on logistics, and as we talked, I realized something. I wasn't second-guessing him. I wasn't waiting for the knife in the back. For the first time in forever, I was just present. When the meeting ended, he shook my hand and said, "You've been through something, haven't you?" I didn't answer, just smiled faintly. "Whatever it was," he continued, "don't let it chain you. The past doesn't have to be the future." Simple words, maybe even cliché, but they stuck with me. That night, I went home, dug the folder out of the drawer where I'd buried it. Ryan's crimes, Sarah's betrayal, every painful page of it. For months, I kept it like armor, proof of what I'd survived. But it wasn't armor. It was a weight, a chain. I took it out to the small fire pit behind my building. One by one, I fed the papers to the flames. Bank statements, phone records, photographs. Each sheet curled and blackened, sparks rising into the night sky like ghosts finally being released. When the last page turned to ash, I sat back, staring at the embers. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not happy, not whole, but lighter. Sarah was gone. Ryan was gone. The life I thought I had was gone. But I was still here, breathing, standing. And maybe that was enough. Weeks later, I signed a lease on a small office downtown. Nothing like the empire we'd once built. Just me, a desk, and a door with my name on it. Clients came in slowly, cautiously. I worked, I built, I moved forward. And one morning, as I unlocked the office, I realized something. Ryan had taken my money. Sarah had taken my trust. But neither of them had taken the one thing they wanted most, my future. That still belonged to me. And this time, I wasn't sharing it with anyone who hadn't earned it.